Welcome to RotoGrinders Today. I'm George Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderHD, BlenderHD. You're going to follow me on Twitter. And it's Tuesday, July 23rd. We'll be taking a look at tonight's big 11 game. I believe it's 11 game MLB slate on DraftKings. Feel free to hit that thumbs up button on your way in the door. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live. Join with me, the greatest player ever in DFS history to come out of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. It's TJ Zwarych. And on today's slate is maybe kind of a repeat of yesterday. I think it's similar to yesterday that we got the Red Sox and Coors, but we got even less pitching. So let's go through. I mean, we got a lot of games. We're gonna have to stack up a lot of teams in the tiers. So let's get moving. Chris Sale is 10-5. Facing Cincinnati. Cincinnati has a sub-3 implied team total. He is the best projected pitcher in the bat, raw points-wise, by 3 points or more. About almost a little bit more than 3 points clearly. Projected ownership, 50+%. Outside of that 55 plus 50 whatever percent number, can you give me any reason not to play Chris Sale at 10-5 against Cincinnati?
Outside of that 50+% reason, no, I can't. But that's a pretty big reason right there.
Well, I mean, is there? I mean, I always say that, and when we talk about stacks with leverage, I say it all the time that a pitcher could, quote, fail, right, and not make, the winning GPP lineup, but that doesn't necessarily mean the stack went off. So, like, what's the threshold on this slate with the pitchers that are available? Because we're going to look at, here are the other high-end pitchers, high-price pitchers at least, that if you're not playing Sale. You got Garrett Crochet, 9,800 against Texas. Logan Gilbert, 10K against the Angels. You got Wheeler against the Twins. And I guess if we would count a 9K pitcher, right? 9K, Luis Gil against the Mets. All of these pitchers, like Crochet is like 3 points under Sale, and Gilbert's similar. And then the other guys are more like 6 points off of him. What is your take on Chris Sale's the prognosis against Cincinnati, who can strike out at a pretty decent rate? Like if Sale scores like 20 points, like you don't need him, right? Like you could get all the other pitchers that I just mentioned. If they score 20 points also, like it's like a wash, right? 25, even you could even say even 25 points for Chris Sale. You could make up that. You could make, I mean, it's Logan Gilbert could go out and do that. So, like, really, we're looking at how often does Sale put up 30+ points in this spot against Cincinnati? I think he's by far the best pitcher on the slate, in the best spot on the slate for strikeouts, has the highest strikeout prop. I'm just not sure if he's gonna be 55% owned. I have no issue. Like, if you took Chris Sale off the slate, TJ, like, I have no problem playing Logan Gilbert, right? Like, I maybe not Zach Wheeler, but even Garrett Crochet at 9,800. Like, and Luis Gil, obviously a little bit higher variance. Like, I'm not naming pitchers that are bad. I'm naming pitchers that are pretty damn good. Maybe not Chris Sale good. Do you think there's a need, especially in the smaller field stuff? Is there a need to play anyone else other than Sale?
I think, like, are you using the bat ownership projections or RotoGrinders right now?
The bat ownership projections.
Okay, on RotoGrinders, he's only 35%. For what it's worth.
Okay, well, what's let's discuss the difference between that. Like, it's an 11-game slate, so there's 22 teams. I don't think there's as many pitchers that are like good or viable compared to yesterday. 35% is much different than 55%. But it's still going to be like 30. He'll be the highest owned pitcher on the slate.
Yeah.
how much of a difference do you think that gap will make? Where's the threshold? Because I think you may agree with me that at 55% on an 11-game slate, like I wouldn't play Sale and the Red Sox together. I mean, like it's like it gets to the point where would you rather play the Red Sox or would you rather play Chris Sale? And I mean, we'll talk about it when it comes to stacks. The Red Sox project way, way higher than so many other teams today. That maybe I play the Red Sox and I just play Logan Gilbert instead. I mean, it's like you're saving $500. I don't think the salary matters, but that's at 55% ownership. At 35% ownership, maybe is he under owned at 35%?
So with 35% in single entry small field stuff, I'm still playing him. At 50 in MME, I'm probably not. At 55%, I'm just hitting the X button completely. I'm fiddling with the idea right now for my 150 max set of not playing any Sale, Wheeler, or Gilbert. Just Xing out those three high-owned pitchers completely, playing solely the guys who are sub 20%, loading up on Garrett Crochet, playing as much of him as I can, getting to some Luis Heel, as much of him as I can, and just really, really going with the cheapies here. Or sorry, not even necessarily the cheapies, the low-owned guys here, as opposed to Gray, Wheeler, Gilbert.
Okay, well, how did you make the choice between Crochet, Gilbert, and Wheeler? And I got to throw Luis Gil in there also at 9K because you're like, okay, I'm going to X out Sale, right? You're going to X out Gilbert. You're going to X. I mean, like what's wrong with Gilbert? Like, why? I mean, we have the bat has the ownership on Gilbert and Wheeler at about 20%, and Crochet at like 19%. So not like that dramatic of a difference. I think 20%. I mean, it's once we get out of this range, there's not going to be many other pitchers that you write home about. What makes you want to cross out Gilbert and Wheeler, all these other guys? But for some reason, Garrett Crochet at 9,800, like you could play him.
The biggest reason is strikeout rate for me. And so if this gets closer to lock and there is really only a 3% difference between Crochet and Gilbert, I will play Gilbert too. I will play him as well. We got Devin, producer Devin in chat. Got to shout him out because he binked a GPP win last night. We both had a sweat in the mini max. I ended up coming third in it. But Devin played the 20 entry max $4 as well. It ended up taking that one down. So shout out to Devin for the win last night. The biggest reason though, so right now the RotoGrinders projections have Gilbert at 22, Crochet at 14. So if that stands, that's the reason I want to go most heavy on Crochet. If they're closer together, I will probably still play Gilbert. But the reason I like Crochet so much better, even though the matchup's tougher, Logan Gilbert, 25% strikeout rate on the season, 24.8 to be precise, and Garrett Crochet 35.2. That's the reason I'm going for the big upside with Crochet strikeout upside. I think he's the one guy that even if Sale does play well, Crochet can still have a better game.
Okay, how about the cheaper options in the bat? I mean, the two that stand out the most. John Gray, 7K against the White Sox, because you can play any pitcher against the White Sox. John Gray, you have to get the Mylanta. So, there's going to be a wide range of outcomes there. And then also Jose Soriano against the Mariners, high strikeout rate team. We see, a 5.5 strikeout prop minus 135 at 7,600 is a pretty good deal. And then we get like Jose Berrios against the Rays at 8,100. According to he may be higher in the bat than some other systems. And then we kind of get down, and then we kind of get like cheap nonsense. I mean, we got a lot of pitchers that I'm not even looking to play today. But is your regard? I mean, if you could just cross out Sale because of ownership, and then Gilbert and Wheeler and all these guys, I mean, are you playing like Crochet plus Gray, Crochet plus Soriano, and using that like $1,500, $2,000 savings to spend up at bats today?
I would really love to not play John Gray today. Like, even though it's the White Sox, he's just been so bad. I was hoping he would be more heavily the chalk SP2. He is going like a lot lower owned in the RotoGrinders projections in the bat right now. So we'll see how that shapes up throughout the day. But he's just been horrific, and I don't want to play him. I would think I'd rather take shots on like Colin Rea, Jose Barrios, I guess maybe some Simeon Woods Richardson because he's so cheap, even though it's Philadelphia, as opposed to John Gray. We did touch on Luis Heel, not as cheap, but then we kind of skipped over him. I do like him a lot for tournaments as well. Big strikeout rate, not going very highly owned, so I do like him quite a bit. Maybe I take a shot on like a Jake Bloss or a Landon Knack, but I doubt it. Those guys I just don't think are going to have the pitch count. I'll probably get to Gray if he's 15% or below. I just don't want to.
To put things into perspective, the last time John Gray struck out more than 5 batters, May 10th. And it was against Colorado. Since then, like 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 2, 0. Yeah, not very many good scores. Even the 22-pointer on DraftKings, that was 3 strikeouts, but essentially, like no 2 hits, no runs. He got the win. Yeah, maybe Jose Soriano looks a little bit better. As far as 5, 5, 4. I mean, it doesn't look that much better, but I mean, he's there. I mean, obviously, if you're paying down a pitcher, I mean, you're going to get some more untrustworthy pitchers. But you mentioned like Jake Bloss against Oakland. Any pitcher against Oakland, I guess, is viable. But Landon Knack against San Francisco. But you're right, like in the bat, Osvaldo Bido, right? Even Simeon Woods Richardson. Like these are all guys that have like median pitch counts, like in the low 80s. And for me, like the thing about Gray and Soriano, but Gray has pitch count issues also. Like it's like once we get into that range, I mean, I don't like if the pitchers aren't good and they're probably not going to pitch more than 5 innings, like you have like no wiggle room. They give up a 3-run home run, you just close your laptop for the day because you ain't winning anything.
Barrios is really interesting because he's been super hit or miss this year, but when he's on, like he has ceiling games. He went 10 Ks a couple games ago, 8 a few before that. When he's on, he's good, and he can go 100 pitches. And so he's very interesting because I think the floor is really low. If Brandon Lau gets to him a couple times, if those lefties hurt him, he could put up a pretty tough score, as you can see. But the ceiling is there. And so I do have a lot of interest in Jose Barrios. Tampa strikes out quite a bit, and he can go 100+ pitches if he's pitching well.
Yeah, to 8,100. I mean, you could take the shot at that. I mean, that's not expensive at all. I mean, are there lineups today? We're going to get the stacks in a second. Are you going to be building lineups today that you double barrel pitcher? It doesn't sound like you are because you're willing to cross some of these guys off. But are there Sale Gilbert lineups, Sale Crochet lineups, Sale Giel, Sale Wheeler? Like those types of lineups where 20K at pitcher. Because I'm looking at the bat stacks page. I don't know about. There may be one kind of vomit stack ish. I mean, there isn't that much cheap hitting that I'm that interested in. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the middle, but you're not going to be able to afford like a 10K pitchers without like having at least a 3-man that has like some $2,200 and a 3K player in it. So okay, here's the question before we get into tiers. Are you much more willing to play two solid pitchers? So you're doing something like, for you, Crochet plus Gil, and then play like a more bottom of the barrel kind of stack and just hope that they get there? Or are you much more willing to, oh, I don't want to rely on that stack. I'm going to rely on John Gray today, or Jose Soriano, or Berrios?
Especially if Sale does end up like 35% owned today, I will do a lot of double barrel stuff. As it stands, if he's going to be like 50 plus, I'll have a lot of like Crochet heel teams, that type of double spend up, not all the way up, but still double spend up. I'm building a Sale Crochet lineup in lineup HQ right now. It's really not that hard. There's a lot of teams I don't mind stacking up with that spot, and you just have to use the back half of the lineup. Colorado and Oakland and Arizona. I think there's a lot of really good options that work well. I did a full stack of Colorado. Arizona's priced very similarly, same with Oakland, and I still have 4K remaining for my last three positions.
Okay, I mean, you may want some of these premium stacks today, though. So let's talk about the stacks. Remember, stacks 5-man on DraftKings, ownership adjusted, and just because if a team is in the bottom, that doesn't mean you can't play a hitter from them. We're talking about just 5-man stacks. So let's start at the very top. The core.
I might before we move past pitching, I might make a rule actually. If I don't fade Chris Sale today, if I play him and he's going to be in like the 35% range, I'm going to make a rule in lineup HQ. I will only play Chris Sale with another expensive pitcher. I'm not going to do a Chris Sale and a pay down because I think that's going to be the most common thing, like a Sale Soriano, a Sale Gray, as opposed to the double spend up. And so I will only play Chris Sale if I'm also playing Crochet or heel.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the hitting today. The only team with the higher than a 5, I mean, they have over 6 implied run total. That's the Red Sox against Ty Block. And then he obviously got the number 2 team in the Bat Stacks page is the Rockies against Cooper Criswell. I mean, by default, I'm going to say the same thing I said yesterday. They're by far the top stack of the slate, projection-wise. But they're also going to be very owned. How owned is too owned? That is the question. I believe that knocks them down from the A tier to the B tier. It's not like they're not affordable. They're affordable, even in cores. Do you think there's enough offense on today's slate that the Red Sox don't become super? They're the chalk, but do they become the super chalk? It's very similar to the Chris Sale question, right? The difference between 35 and 55% is actually it's a lot. And the difference here between 15% owned as a stack and 25% owned as a stack is also a lot. So like at 15%, they may actually be under-owned. And at 25%, maybe they're over-owned. So where do you think the Red Sox lie? And do you think they're going to be owned enough that you would knock them down from the obvious A tier to the B tier?
I think they got to go A tier because I think while they will be fairly heavily owned, they're not going to be crazy. I think people are paying up for pitching today, and if you're paying up for pitching, it is too hard to full stack the Red Sox. And so I don't think they're going to be all that highly owned. As it stands right now, the RotoGrinders projections have Wong as the highest owned player at 13%. And so that's not something I'm worried about. Maybe that ends up higher, but maybe not. Like if Sale is 50%, if Wheeler's 30, if Gilbert's 25, they're not going to be that much higher than that just because you can't really get to these guys if you're spending up for those teams. So when I see Romy Gonzalez at 10%, I'm looking to fade that. And I see Devers at 8 and Jarren Duran at 8, which is possible in the lefty that those guys don't get prioritized as spend ups today. I'm more likely to try and get to these guys in full spend ups while fading Chris Sale as opposed to playing Chris Sale and doing Westbrook, Gonzalez, and I mean Yoshida's coming in low owned on the left. So just like give me Connor Wong and the lefties in this spot.
Okay, well, I think the Red Sox are going to be much higher owned, but definitely one of the top tier stacks on the slate. How about the Rockies on the other side? The price is even more affordable. I don't care about Cooper Criswell, but they are the Rockies. I mean, are the Rockies an A-tier team also?
I think so because they're cheap. If we do get the lineup that we're projecting right now, they're nice and cheap. I want to play like they're maybe I'm a little biased because I had a full Rocky stack, and that's the reason I won a bunch of money yesterday. Sam Hilliard's home run bumped me way up in the standings at the end of the game there. But like Hilliard, Cave, Stallings, Rogers, Toglia batting either cleanup or fifth. Tovar, like the whole team is sub 5K. So one, that's easy. But Toglia down, you can do a 5-man stack where the most in Coors against a mediocre pitcher, where the most expensive player is $4,100. So I like this team a lot today. I'll have more Colorado than Boston.
Okay. After this Coors game, do we have a group of teams in the next kind of tier, right? That we're talking about. So let's go through them. So I'm going to throw out a bunch of teams. You put them into tiers. Okay, we got the Phillies against Richardson, the Diamondbacks against Marsh, the Dodgers against Jordan Hicks, the Giants against Landon Knack, and the Brewers against Jameson Taillon. I'm going to go from what you said before. I'm assuming, is it possible that you have the Diamondbacks in the A tier?
So the Diamondbacks and are I would very much consider to be in the A tier. Yes, they got one of the highest totals on the slate, I believe, only behind the Coors game and the Yankees. And they're just so cheap outside of Marte, Carroll, Walker. Like this is another team that give me Eugenio Suarez, give me Alec Thomas, give me Geraldo Perdomo, Moreno, Gurriel, and then Jock Peterson is my most expensive option. Give me the cheap ones. Yes, Marte and Walker are great. And Walker at 6% owned. I do really like that. And again, I don't know why I'm harping so much on ownership right now because one, it's early in the day, but two, I've never seen such a big difference between the Bats and RotoGrinders ownership projections. I've never seen them disagree so much. They're usually like within 5 to 10% max of each other on players. And there's some really big differences today. So that's something that's going to be very interesting to take a look at. See if those maybe come together to like a middle throughout the day, or if they continue to disagree. But I would be fine with Arizona in B. I'd also be fine with Arizona in A.
Then we got the Phillies and the Dodgers. Obviously, I mean, doesn't matter who they're facing. Doesn't matter they're expensive, but they could always go off. I don't know. I'm just not in the business of. I mean, I'd rather play the Phillies against Richardson than the Dodgers against Hicks from a pitching matchup perspective. But I'm not sure how enthused I'm playing. I'm planning on wanting to play either team at their prices. I mean, where would you put the Phillies and the Dodgers? I mean, they're at least in the C tier, but I mean, are they B tier worthy even at their prices?
I think Philly is B tier worthy just because like that's it. Like it's such a good lineup all the way through. Like they're expensive and they're going to be tough to get to, but I do think Phillies are in the B tier because they have a really high ceiling. Dodgers, I would go C. They can have a cheap back half of the lineup to stack. The difference between them and a team like Arizona is I don't really want to play the back half of this lineup. Like I'm not enthused to play Chris Taylor and Miguel Rojas. Hayward and Lux maybe a little bit more. Pa has a little bit more, but Rojas and Rojas and Taylor not so much. What I'll say with LA is if the projected ownership stands, and this is going to be a team where Ohtani's the only one not sub 5%, I'll definitely be at least double the field.
I'm also putting the Brewers in the C tier against Tyon. I don't think Tyon is that great of a target to stack against. I'm not saying that Tyon's going to be owned or you should play Tyon, but not necessarily the type of pitcher that gets blown up, where the Brewers would be the top stack of the entire slate. And lastly, to go on our theme from yesterday, the Giants are up there. They project well against Landon Knack. They're cheap. They're reasonably cheaper. Where are we putting the Giants? Because we're not putting them in the F tier. I know the Giants never win a slate, right? Never the Giants on the screen. So are they D tier? Are they D tier for you? Just never the Giants.
Yeah, I'm fine with D tier for me. I'm not going to be playing them at all. So they even in 150 max, so they would be an F tier for me. But I'm fine with them in the D tier. I was actually going to have Milwaukee in the D tier as well until I realized the wind is going to be blowing out in Chicago. Not a big wind, but still it's Chicago. And it's going to be blowing out there. So I don't think you can have them in D. I think they got to be C because of that. Who was the other team we were just talking about in addition to San Francisco?
No, that's it.
Just San Francisco? Then yeah, D. D for San Francisco.
Okay, you mentioned Chicago. Chicago against Ray, and then the Rays against Berrios. I think Chicago. At their prices, I don't mind playing pitchers against Colin Ray. I'm putting the Cubs in the B tier. The Rays against Berrios. Berrios is like Jekyll and Hyde, right? So even though we may have interest in Berrios, I think the Rays are reasonably priced, and Berrios could have a bad outing. So I'm fine with B or C for the Rays. And then we have the Mets against Gil. The Mets are, like, from a point per dollar standpoint, like the most expensive stack on the entire slate. I'd much rather play other teams than the Mets today against Gil, even though obviously, like, Gil could give up Gil could fail, and the Mets
another player who is like Jekyll and Hyde,
right? But he could fail, and the Mets could still not have be the top stack of the slate. So from that, I'm putting the Mets on the D tier. But what say you on the Cubs, the Mets, and the Rays?
I would maybe boost the Mets to C. I agree with everything else you got there. I would maybe boost the Mets to C just because it's a huge park upgrade for them. When Heal's bad, he's really bad. And so you got a couple of walks and a couple of home runs, and all of a sudden things could explode in a hurry. But like you said, they are very expensive. So they're just I don't think anybody's going to play them at all. So I do like them as a contrarian stack today in MME. But all the other spots that you got, I agree with. I'm not quite as high on the Rays, but they're cheap. They got a few lefties in there, plus a Rosarina, who's been one of the best hitters in baseball over the last couple of weeks. So I think they do deserve to be there.
Okay, the next four teams all project pretty much equally. And I'm going to mention these four teams as equal teams. And you'll be surprised that, like, one team does not sound like the other. But they probably should be, now at least. Okay, so these four teams in this bucket, they project like so close to each other as a stack. You got the Braves against Martinez, the Blue Jays against the Braves against Martinez, the Royals against Jordan Montgomery, the Astros against Osvaldo Bido, and the Oakland A's against John Bloss. In the beginning of the season, I don't think we'd put the Braves, Royals, Astros, and A's together in one, like, oh, these teams are about the same.
Well, guess what? The A's are tier 2, borderline tier 1 for me. And so they're the team that doesn't fit, but they're the team I'm also most excited to play in that group. Did they not fit, or is the bat saying like they're really bad or something, or did we just forget about the Yankees?
No, they're coming up. They're coming up.
They're still coming up. Okay.
They're coming up.
Because they're second highest implied total on the slate, only behind
Yeah, I know they're
behind
coming up.
Colorado.
Don't worry about it.
I would say tier 3 for Kansas City. I don't love that it's Montgomery on the short game followed by some bullpen there. So I would go Kansas City in 3. Houston 3 as well, maybe even 4. Like, I don't want to play Houston outside of Yordan Alvarez, if I'm being totally honest. Park downgrade for them. I don't really love Houston today.
How
And then
about the Braves against Martinez?
The Braves. I don't really want to play them either. I mean, Martinez is a low strikeout pitcher, so that does get things more interesting for me because the Braves' offense, their biggest fault is strikeouts. They're just so beaten down right now, though. I would probably keep them. I'm fine with D. I would be fine with C though too. I don't really want to play a guy like Zach Short. It would be Ozuna and Kelenic and Darno, and like, is Riley going to be out for this one too? Is there no Riley in addition to Albies and Acuna and Harris?
They got injuries. They got right.
Where's Riley? What happened to him?
He disappeared. I mean, also we have to realize. I mean, you tune into crunch time for it. This Atlanta game may end up getting, woo,
Yeah.
Bye bye.
I say yeah. Let's keep him in D. Let's keep him in D.
Okay. 2 cheap teams based on their current lineup order and who's available. You got the Blue Jays against Tyler Alexander, and then you got the Yankees against Jose Quintana. The Yankees lineup sort of does not look like what you thought the Yankees lineup would look like. It's Soto, Judge, and a bunch of other people. When the corpse of DJ LeMahieu is rejected to bat leadoff, the Yankees are not in good shape, but they're really cheap. And against Jose Quintana, they all have almost a 5 implied run total. I think this is going to be I think the Yankees are actually going to be much more popular than we may think because of price, especially in those double barrel types of lineups. Price alone, I mean, I'm going to put them in the B tier, but maybe you could make a case for the A tier, or unless you don't like them. But I think the Blue Jays are also against Tyler Alexander. I mean, at least C tier worthy. So what do you say about the Yankees and the Blue Jays?
Yeah, I keep Blue Jays at C. I don't think they have as high of ceiling as those other teams above them. Yankees would be a not for ownership. I do think they're going to be super highly owned as well. I think they're likely going to be the chalkiest stack on the slate. I think they'll be higher owned than Boston today. The nice thing about them is I do think they're stackable without playing the super highly owned guys. Like, if you just don't play LeMahieu, Torres, Davis, I think you're going to be different enough with the Yankees. Torres is the one chalky player I'd be willing to play anyways, just because he fills that second base position. But if you play Jahmai Jones instead of Torres today because he has second base eligibility, or you play Oswaldo Cabrera there, or play Cabrera at third instead of Davis or LeMahieu, all of a sudden that stack is different enough. I'm talking myself into A because I think there's going to be ways that you can get different. So I want to put the Yankees in A.
Okay, now we have the bottom of the barrel teams. These all go to the bottom. You're gonna have to give me a compelling reason. Let's throw them all in the F tier, and then you have to give me a compelling reason why they shouldn't be in the F tier. So we got Cincinnati against Sale, Seattle against Jose Soriano, the Twins against Wheeler, the White Sox against John Gray, the Rangers against Garrett Crochet, and the Angels against Logan Gilbert. Make your case about any of these teams to be bumped up. That, I mean, maybe not even D, but C, wherever. The easiest one to talk about is the Reds against Chris Sale. Maybe this will be controversial. Maybe it'll be a little controversial. Normally, I'm the type of person that'll like, well, Chris Sale's going to be super owned. The Reds can't can't be an F tier team. Stacking against that pitcher is always viable. I go back to what I said in the very beginning. Sale could fail as SP1, score 8 points, and the Reds still aren't the top stack of the day. I'm going to side. The Reds are not cheap. Like, you're spending. I mean, you're spending as if you're playing like more than the Rock, like the Diamondbacks, and you're playing a
I
team that
mean,
has
not
a
if you don't play
total.
Dela Cruz, really.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously, you'd probably if the Reds are going to go off today. Probably Dela Cruz does something, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I'm leaving the Reds on the F tier, but you can make the case that the leverage is worth it alone or something. But make your case against any of these bottom of the barrel teams not being F tier.
So for the Reds, I think if Chris Sale is 35 to 40% owned today, they are the F tier. If Chris Sale is 55% owned today, I think that in alone is worth it to bump them to D. Just because you're right, like Dela Cruz is likely to have a big game, but you could still say you want to play two of the other expensive pitchers and then get leverage with some Reds. You want to go Slater, Fairchild, Marte, Stevenson, Hines. That's an average stack price of like $3,400. So there is a really cheap way to go about them as a vomit stack if Sale is 50+% owned. But if it's in the 30s to low 40s, I think they just stick in the F tier. For Seattle, I would bump them up to the D tier as well, just because I think Soriano could end up being the somewhat de facto medium chalk SP2 today. And they're projected for very low ownership. They're very cheap. They're batting Polanco near the top middle of the order again. Robles is batting near the top of the order, and he's 2,400. Rojas is expected to lead off today. He's cheap. Garver's cheap. The whole team is sub 5K. Nobody's playing them, and Soriano's not that good. And so I don't actually mind Seattle today. I would consider maybe even putting them to C if I'm being honest. I kind of like myself some Seattle. And then the final one I would maybe move up to D would be the White Sox, just because John Gray has been trash.
Right. I mean, I was going to say, if you were going to mention, I'm like, if I was in a courtroom, I'm like, well, you have to convince a jury, 12 jury members of your peers, why you should play the White Sox today in one of your lineups, and some of your lineups, not all of your lineups, right? All I would do is, I would say I have one witness. I have one witness, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I present you, and then down the middle of the courtroom, here comes John Gray. That's it. I rest my case. No closing arguments needed, right? It's John Gray, right? It means the White Sox are in play. I mean, if I had one lineup, would I be playing the White Sox today? No, but I mean, you're not D tier. To me, I always view D tier as you're not crazy. The F tier is kind of like you're a bit crazy, right? Like the F tier is like, yeah, I'm not playing any of these, right? We're not playing Tat today, right? We're playing Craney, right? If we're going to use the letters of the alphabet, right? So,
go back to the sock. Put the Sox 2, because that kind of looks like an L. Like, no, the Red Sox. Because it kind of looks like an L, and then they could be like Cray.
Well, Crane. Well, I mean, you have Cray, right? Craney. You have Pask or Pasks, if you want that. And obviously, once you get the TBs and the KCs, I mean, we can't make a word out of that, right? But always, the Giants just you just X out. It seems like you X out the Giants just on a daily basis, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
And it has not affected your life.
Nope, not whatsoever.
Okay, so to reiterate again, Coors, chalk, Sale chalk, assuming that the Atlanta game plays. If gun to your head, right? I hate these types of questions. Gun to your head. Would you rather have, and you're playing large field I mean, it doesn't even matter, right? Because the small, you're playing one lineup today, right? For the people that, play one lineup, they play the $12 single entry, something like that. They have one line. And you had to choose between playing either Chris Sale or Boston Red Sox. I'm not even talking about a stack, just any of the Red Sox, right? So if you play Chris Sale, you can play 0 Red Sox. If you play any of the Red Sox, you play 0 Chris Sale. Which side are you on? Chris Sale or the Red Sox?
If Sale is going to be 50+% owned, the Red Sox. If Sale is going to be 35%, Chris Sale.
Okay, so basically, it just comes down to what do you think his ownership is going to be? And remember, even at 35% owned, he's still going to be the chalkiest pitcher on the slate. So
yeah,
I think the concept that I try to reiterate on this show and in the theory of DFS, my DFS course, is that there's no such thing as good chalk and bad chalk, just over-owned and under-owned. So, if Chris Sale is the highest owned pitcher and he's 27% owned, I'd want to have a lot of them.
I'd have 50+% of them if Chris Sale's less than 30% owned.
Right. Okay, so it's not, even though he's the highest owned pitcher, it doesn't mean he can't play. He's the highest owned. He can't play. It's like, well, it depends on what that number is.
It's just when somebody's going to be in literally half of people's lineups, that's just simply too good of an opportunity for me to go, okay, if he fails, I'm competing in the contest with half as many people as before. Right. And so I just don't play him ever, or I play 100%. Those are literally my two options in that scenario. But if he is going to be 30%, I will be playing him. If he somehow fell below 30%, then I would be playing 50 to 60%.
Well, that's not going to happen. I mean, the only way that happens today is weather.
Yeah.
If there's some question on whether or not they play, and then obviously that'll shake up everything. Now ownership starts going to Gilbert and Wheeler and Gill and these other guys and Crochet. So definitely tune into a crunch time for the weather report. We may have an issue in Atlanta, maybe an issue in Chicago. Roth has it as yellow as of now, but you could listen to the updates on Crunch Time, which is following Grinders Live, which comes on at 5 p.m. Eastern on this channel, right? So hit that notification bell, hit the subscribe button if you're new here, and hit the like button on your way out the door. DJ, your week, I mean, are you going to be on Crunch Time? Are you going to be on those shows later today? Because I know that you're kind of all over the schedule this week.
So I am I'm Steve this week, and so I did pop on Crunch Time yesterday, but
you're Steve.
I'm
you don't
Steve.
Look like
My
Steve.
name is...
You're not Steve this week.
I am Steve in all shapes and all way, shape, and form.
So you're going to be rooting for the Mets today? Are you going to be rooting for the Mets today?
That's why I had to consider. That's why I had to bump them up a tier
on the screen during the show for no reason.
That's why I had to bump them up the tier. Is because we got to
change. I go back to tier maker. The Mets are moving up to the B tier because if you're Steve, we got to move. You get the Steve bump up to the B tier.
All right, Steve bump up to the B tier for the Mets today. They project poorly. They're really expensive, but we love the Mets, and so there it is. Absolutely love it. Grinders Live today. We got Dean, obviously, with Bobby and Tim, the People Show. Speaking of, we got NFL starting up soon. That's so exciting. And then we got Roth, Keith, and Cheese for Crunch Time today. But I'll be producing all the shows all week except for Thursday. But Thursday I will be on the early Crunch Time as well. And then it's Deadpool and Wolverine time, Blender. We're excited. Going to be the biggest R-rated movie of all time. And people saw it last night. We got the Agents of Fandom. I didn't fly out to Toronto personally, but we have one of my co-owners, one of our writers is seeing it at the Canadian premiere in Toronto right now as we speak. I'm excited for this movie.
Well, make sure you set your lineups before you go out to the movies.
It's an early slate. Like, it worked out so perfectly.
Oh, for Thursday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Thursday's more of an early slate. Also, tomorrow is also a little bit earlier. So tomorrow's show is not this show. It'll be Grinders Live. Dean will be on, and I'll be on with him 10:30 in the morning tomorrow. So got to wake up a little bit earlier. 10:30 tomorrow. Thursday, there will be no show because it'll just be crunch time for that kind of like early afternoon slate. And then I'll be back on Friday with Squirrel Patrol, as always, for the MMA, UFC, the UFC pay-per-view card, which looks pretty damn good. 14 fights as of now. So tune in then and tune in every 11 o'clock, usually 11 o'clock in the morning, Monday through Friday, when I'm here talking about all things you're thinking about in daily fantasy, props, and pick 'em on RotoGrinders Today.